Hey guys, today I'm gonna talk about the time I, as an 18-year-old Swedish kid who didn't have any engine knowledge, began building a 1955 TE820 tractor to do over 6,000 RPMs and be totally race-worthy. So yeah, it was an exciting time. Let's get into it. I first started to make some regular ass repairs because I bought the tractor for super cheap, so I began by modifying the alternator bracket from the stock dynamo to a regular old car alternator. And then I also needed to repair the radiator, and as it's brass I could just solder that shit up. So I did that, and then of course stubborn bolts, so I sliced the slot in it, but I broke my screwdriver, but I finally got it out, and then I started the real teardown. Here is the valve cover off, and I tried to stay organized, but just as usual, that went to shit pretty quickly. And look at those small, tiny ass ports on this low flow, low RPM tractor head. And it was so disgusting inside. So much rust in the passages, and look at those tiny, tiny push rods. The engine was just disgusting. So much carbon and oily garbage inside. I'll show you some close-ups later, but it was absolutely disgusting. And look at how stubby and silly it looks with all that out. Can you see the amount of crap? Like this was running good before I took it apart. Absolutely fucking crazy. And this is how the valves are supposed to look, but someone changed the intake and the exhaust valve so they were way out of whack. But there is so much room for adjustment on these old tractors, so just adjusted it in properly and it ran super well. Here is a spring compressor I built from some scrap completely for free. Took like 10 minutes, and I've torn the engine apart with that one multiple times, and look at all those valve components. And then I found a freeze crack. Always fun to find some surprises in your projects. But it didn't leak before, but it was like rusted shut, but then it began to leak after reassembly. So now it's JB welded and holding all nice. But the fortunate thing about these engines are that the cylinder liners are so damn thick they can hold all the combustion pressure all on their own. They don't even need the block for support in that way really. But you can just see how much rust and crap came out of the coolant passages. This, guys, is why we run coolant and not straight water, and also change the coolant. But here you have a really nice, really old picture of my shop. I've come so damn far. And then I put up the head on the mill and tram the head in to make it super flat and not have like a valley in the middle. And this is actually at like trade school where I studied to be a machinist. Shout out to Jonas, you're the man. But here I am shaving the head down with a boring head and a lathe boring bar with a high-speed steel insert put in reverse because I couldn't run the mill in reverse. So I had to be really creative. It was a slow process, but I actually shaved 5 millimeters, 5 whole millimeters of the head surface. And then I found the biggest end mill I could find in school, and I believe it was a 20 mil one. And I began to just plunge right down into the ports from the valve side to remove the bit of the valve guide, and you can see that huge hump right where the valve guide is, and that's like the most important part of the entire port to have good flow right at the turn there. So these humps worked for the low flow of the stock application, but were really bad for my application. So these had to go, and I was just roughing these out for the guy who did my porting. Because, like, look at that amount of chips. Trying to get rid of that with just a carbide burr, horrible. Here are the intake port, before and after porting. It's just such a crazy difference. And here is the exhaust port, which had an even bigger hump. It was so big, in fact, I couldn't even fit my pinky finger over the hump. And then I tore into the head with an angle grinder when I've gotten it home, to make this kind of chamfer to mimic what the stock head had, because this part is completely flat and the squish would be horrendous. So this is just to try to get some flow back into the combustion chamber and not just squish the fuck out of the gas. And then I started working on the valves. I just put them in my cheap ass drill and then ran some emperor cloth on it. I later moved on to a file because this was too slow, but it actually turned out pretty nice. And then just some lapping, and it actually sealed really nice. This feels so wrong now, like after, but I don't know, it worked. And I also needed to reduce the locating diameter of the valve spring retainers because the new stiffer valve springs had a way thicker wire, so with the same outer diameter they had a way smaller inner diameter. So that's how I fixed that. And then I started lapping the first seat. Look at that gorgeous seat. And look at that gorgeous head. Like, oh my god. I just love it. And here are the plugs I used. Stock Volvo red block plugs. They have longer threads, so the spark went into more of the center of the combustion chamber. But I also needed to thread the last 3 threads on the head. So I just filed a slit into an old scrap plug from my mom's 740 and ran that through a couple times, and it actually worked perfectly. And as you can see, there weren't even the top of the line OEM ones, but actually genuine Volvo, which is pretty fun. And here is the reground camshaft. Cost like $400 when I gave him my actual camshaft, so it was the price of the camshaft plus $400. But expensive, yes, but just look at that craftsmanship. It was so damn gorgeous. Absolutely no complaints, except for the poor casting quality. This is the new valve springs, but they bottomed out on themselves, so I had to bring the head to work and put it up in the CNC machine to mill down the place where the valves go just a little bit. So I think I milled down about 3 mil or something like that. Here is a nice simulation of that. Fusion 360 is working really good. And here we have a nice square video from my Instagram, this one too, of the mill working. This mill is way overkill for this, but I had it, so I used it. And here is the before and after. Really simple operation, but it was absolutely necessary, otherwise I would have just destroyed my push rods. And here I'm reassembling the valve system for the last time before that race. And I'm using the spring compressor I made. I have actually torn down this head maybe 2 or 3 times after this with the same spring compressor. It's slow, but it works perfectly fine. Absolutely no complaints. And you can see how spiffy the head looks with the shiny valves and the shiny surface and all of that other stuff. And right here we have the front axle finally assembled. And then listen to this. Oh, that was so damn satisfying to do. And then I didn't have a torque wrench, but 10 Newton meters is just 1 kilogram meter. So I put on a 1 meter long cheater bar on this socket, and then I had one of these fish hunting scales, and I just pulled it to 8.6 kilograms, which is 86 Newton meters. And well, I raced it and it didn't leak and I didn't destroy anything, so I guess it worked. Not the correct way to do it, but solving problems. Here it is, all nice and torqued down with the entire valve system assembled, and this just looked so satisfying I had to put it in here. But just imagine that at 6,000 RPM. Stuff is moving quicker than my mind can think of. And here we have the first start. I was so happy. And some revving. Fuck yeah! Pops and bangs because it did not run right. I haven't really done anything, but it ran better later. for some reason. Not really sure why. This build is a lot of unknowns, I think. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. After reassembling this for the second race, there was not enough fuel flow. After not changing anything. So weird. But it sounds pretty nasty, and here's one of the only things I did to make it look nicer, because it was just missing something. And here I am pulling it out of the shop at like 6 in the morning after doing an oil change, because the night before I broke in the brand new camshaft at like 12:30 at night. So this was all the test driving I did before racing it. I'm fucking stupid sometimes. Because here I loaded it up on the trailer about like 10 minutes after pulling it out of the shop for the first time ever. But nothing really broke. It leaked some coolant, but no problem. And here is race day. I'll leave you with this for a while. Just unedited race footage. And there she is, right after the race, all loaded up, ready to go home, nice and muddy, just like she's supposed to be. And here she is at home, just looking gorgeous! So subscribe to me on here, follow me on TikTok or stuff like that, because this was only stage 1. Now I'm planning and trying to build stage 2 with EFI, electronic fuel ignition, and a DIY camless engine system. So kinda like free valve inspired. And yeah, I'm trying to do a lot of stupid shit. And also like bigger valves, another head, bigger bore, lots of custom fabrication, but still running the stock engine. I am aiming for 2.4 liters and at least 250 horsepower. So subscribe, and I leave you with this bonus clip of me just ripping it at top speed when I got home.